Hello, welcome to Encik Horror Storytelling Podcast, where real paranormal encounters are shared and the unexplained comes to life. Before we begin tonight's story, make sure to subscribe to my YouTube, follow my TikTok and Instagram, and also check out my Spotify at Encik Horrors. If you have any stories to share, feel free to DM me on my TikTok. Now, let's get into tonight's encounter. So for tonight's story is sent by a listener and is titled "The Night My Grandfather Saw Something That Wasn't Human." My grandfather used to work as a cleaner in an old hotel in Malaysia many years ago. I never found out the name of the hotel, but according to him, it was already quite old and had a creepy atmosphere, especially during the night shift. One night, around midnight, he was doing his usual rounds, cleaning the corridors and checking the rooms. Everyone seemed normal until he walked past a restroom. As he glanced towards the toilet entrance, he suddenly froze. Standing just outside the toilet was what looked like a pocong. It wasn't moving, it was simply peeking at him from the corner, staring directly at him. My grandfather couldn't believe what he was seeing. Thinking his eyes were playing tricks on him, he immediately rushed towards the toilet to investigate. But the moment he reached the entrance, it was gone. Nobody was there. No footsteps, no sound, nothing. The corridor was completely empty. Trying to convince himself that it was just exhaustion from working late hours, he continued with his duties. But the sight of that figure kept replaying in his mind. Feeling uneasy, he decided to take a short break outside the hotel to clear his head. The night was quiet, too quiet. As he sat alone, he suddenly heard a faint humming sound. At first, it sounded like someone softly singing in the distance. He turned around. Nobody was there. Thinking it was probably coming from somewhere else, he ignored it. A few moments later, the humming returns. This time, it sounded closer, much closer. My grandfather stood up and looked around the area, but once again, he couldn't find anyone. The humming stopped. For a few seconds, everything was silent. Then, it started again, right above him. Slowly, he lifted his head. And what he saw next was something he will never forget for the rest of his life. Perched high above was a creature unlike anything he had ever seen. Its body looked human, but its face resembled a horrifying mix of a goat and a horse. It had large twisted horns protruding from his head and a long tongue hanging from its mouth, far longer than any normal person's. The creature wasn't moving. It wasn't making a sound. It was just like staring directly at him, watching him. My grandfather said its eyes were the most terrifying part. They never blinked. For what felt like an eternity, he stood there frozen in fear while the creature continued to gaze down at him. His entire body began to shake. He couldn't scream, he couldn't run, he couldn't even look away. The last thing he remembered was the creature staring at him from above before everything went black. When he woke up, he was in the hospital. According to his co-workers, they found him unconscious and rushed him there immediately. My grandfather never returned to that hotel again. Not long after the incident, he left Malaysia and moved to Singapore to find work elsewhere. Even years later, whenever he spoke about that night, he would become quiet and serious. He always insisted that what he saw was real. And to this day, nobody knows what was really watching him that night. But one thing is certain, whatever he saw above him wasn't human. Now, do you believe in this story? Believe it or not, your choice.